Now, we may be past the point where the saves will not load and crash. So let's see how that goes.
If it does crash, then I remember where we made choices.
Yep,
so
game
we'll
crashed.
Yep.
Okay, so
How did they manage to screw that up?
I mean, it's not a perfect patch. It's just the
weird.
It's only 43% fixed, and like a lot of the things. I mean, they just released it because people wanted to see it, even though it's not fully translated. And
they just allow for bug works.
It's not. It hasn't been like worked on in years, I think. All right, we'll try that again.
Add screen region. Every screen.
Caution, it says.
Okay, load. So we'll do the first load. And this is where we'll just see where it goes. High velocity skip. Woo!
Whee!
High velocity skip.
Even if you weigh something.
Hang on, let me just.
I want to retweet you, also.
Oh, it's actually. I thought it was just skipping straight to the next choice. It's actually like skipping through stuff. I guess.
What?
Fuck.
Like,
you like fish?
I hope it's not skipping through the choices. I don't see how it would either. There we go. Okay.
There's a choice. This choice we did blue.
Okay.
Let's do red.
Nope.
Or no, sorry.
That's not how this works.
Kono Yaro. I can't stand that sky.
Can't you just press the key binding for high velocity skip rather than
Yes, I
going
can.
into the menu?
I'm dumb.
Oopsie.
Also, yes, Steve-Ack, it keeps going. Last time we had a boy get raped in a bathroom, and then a boy get beaten up.
Whoa. No. Really?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, this is
Oh,
all
God.
about the Noncon. All about the Noncon.
Don't you know anything about Yaoi?
Yeah, I guess I do now. After
this
watching.
roof choice was red.
Okay.
After watching Junjo Romantica.
Alright, I forgot to hit the end button. This was Reason? Or
Yeah, this one was reason.
Okay.
Freaking Xenia.
After confront, this one is,
Okay, let me see. This is when he is like, come with me and do this thing. That was reason.
Okay.
As I recall, we only did instinct when we were around Tetsuo.
Yeah, I think so. And then, yeah. Then we talked to Makoto, and that's blue. After confronting Tetsuo, let's see. Oh, Xenia came and was about to feel up on Yoji, but then Tetsuo came to the rescue. And
they fought over who gets to basically fuck the boy.
This is instinct. Oh my, look
Yep.
at those two boys smoldering. This was blue.
Yep.
So now I'm gonna skip. Oh, nope, don't do that. Control.
Blah 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 blah.
Yeah, just go on.
Oh yeah, this
Okay,
is
oh, wait.
Xenia's breakdown.
Xenia's. Yeah, because
Still
he
a
has
while.
some sort of weird problem.
Yeah.
I would actually do high speed skip because there's still one more choice that we had to make
Oh,
after
okay. I would not call Yoji an alpha dog whatsoever.
No, he's beta as fuck.
He just looks a little bit alpha.
this. There, we just proved it. We just proved just now that women actually believe in the alpha beta system. The red pill is real.
The red pill is real.
Oh, okay, that's
Yeah.
right. It skips.
This is right here.
Yeah, I forgot that it doesn't skip past things you've already seen, so there wasn't another choice. Okay, anyway. Volume needs to be down a little bit. Ooh, good music though. I like it.
Oh, I wish I could hear it.
Alright, so who's gonna be the narrator?
I could do it, I guess.
Alright,
Yes, please do.
let me know
Okay.
if you get tired.
Alright, I will. Even if they were just having a falling out, Xenia wasn't his normal self, and those bloodshot eyes didn't seem like a farce.
Oh right, the quotation
Yeah.
marks have disappeared, so
Yeah, they have. So
we have to infer.
if you're not gonna answer, fuck off now.
Let's do.
Screaming, Xenia moved to grab at Tetsuo.
I'm gonna assume that's Tetsuo. Oh,
But
never
midway,
mind.
Xenia stops moving. His left eye opened as if he'd been surprised by something.
That's there.
Xenia gave a quiet moan, drawing back. Suddenly, Xenia let out a strange cry from his throat. Trembling, his body swayed unnaturally as he began to walk towards the entranceway. What had happened? Watching, dumbfounded, Yoji heard the sound of bells. It wasn't the school bell. It was the bell that plays Yu Yake Ko Yake. What? He
I believe
definitely
that's
felt like he'd learned something from Makoto about Xenia and Yu Yake Ko Yake. Maybe it wasn't made up. That
right.
must be the
So
ghost thing.
at the same time every day, Xenia disappears when this song plays at 5 p.m.
Because it haunts him somehow. It fucks up his body.
Splashing through the
Yeah.
water, Xenia disappeared into the rain. His anguished cries grew further, and only the sound of rain pounding the ground reached him.
Dot 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 dot.
Face to face with Xenia's transformation, Yoji had been standing still in a daze. But the coldness suddenly creeping up his legs made them shaky. He noticed his fingertips were also partly numb with coldness, a natural result of being hit with cold rain for so long. His calm thoughts returned along with the coldness, and he finally processed what was going on.
Tetsuo, the big boy, is standing
Tetsuo,
right
turning to
there.
him, he was met with a sharp gaze. Although he'd helped him out, for now he couldn't drop his guard towards the other man.
Why did you come here? This is
Girls
Tetsuo.
can be.
Oh, I saw you and Okinaga talking. Must have been when Xenia was greeting him in the entranceway.
Why did you go out of your way? Yoji too. Oh.
Yoji. Yoji took a step back as he spoke. Tetsuo was staring at Yoji with the usual silence. But he felt something was different. He didn't know what it was, just that a strange sense of danger was growing. Tetsuo stepped forward. The rain sped up, violent splashes hitting his ears. He should just run, not just from Xenia, but from this man as well. He was just about to turn his body away.
But then
Tetsuo had nimbly closed the distance, grabbing Yoji's arm. He was holding on with merciless strength, pushing him to face the wall. The
Oh
hard
boy.
sensation of concrete hit his cheek, and Tetsuo's body temperature draped over his back. Huh? Alright.
stop, Shiruma.
Sorry, go ahead. Yoji knew all too well that there was no point in trying to fend him off. He never managed to stop him before, and under these circumstances, things weren't looking too good for Yoji this time either.
Oh,
Yep,
jeez.
this time, the second.
And yet, even when faced with the inevitable, Yoji wouldn't will himself to scream.
If I gave him the satisfaction, then I don't think I'd be able to make it through this.
He thought, terror grabbing hold of him.
Oh jeez. Oh boy.
Tetsuo pinned one of his hands to the wall, then pressed against him from behind with the full weight of his body. Yoji couldn't move an inch. He could feel Tetsuo's breath against the cold nape of his neck. The unexpected warmth there made his skin crawl. Tetsuo took his jaw in hand, forcing his neck to crane backward ever so slightly. The nape of Yoji's neck felt damp, but it wasn't because of the rain.
It's the blood.
It's your blood.
The blood,
Slowly
the
sliding down the
blood.
back of his neck, then to the small dip of his collarbone. The soft lining of his mouth, his warm tongue. A chill ran down Yoji's spine. All that it aroused in Yoji was a bitter mixture of hatred and fear. Sounds terrible. Yoji held his breath as he endured the territorial zeal of Tetsuo's tongue against his skin. A sharp pain shot up from where Tetsuo marked him.
Oh.
Did Tetsuo just bite he? As Tetsuo pressed his lips against the back of Yoji's neck, his hand released its grip on his unwilling jaw. He He then used his free hand to pull up Yoji's vest and shirt by the hem, the touch of those fingers not in the least bit gentle as they continued their advance over his stomach. Gross. As Tetsuo's hand made contact with his bare skin, he noted that it was still wet and cold to the touch. His it.
No.
No,
Shironuma.
Sorry, go ahead. He raised his voice against Tetsuo, but because of how hoarse his voice was, the tone was more begging and pathetic than he wanted to come off. Yoji burned inside, self-hatred welling up within him. Over and over, the same scenario yet again unfolding before Yoji, endlessly repeating. Through Tetsuo's hand, Yoji was forced to reconcile how much of a miserable and weak little maggot he truly was. But was it really necessary, having to remind Yoji yet again of his complete helplessness? Wasn't he satisfied by now? Surely Yoji was in shambles enough as it was.
Jeez.
Then it dawned on Yoji.
I'm not even a living, breathing human being to him anymore. And no, I'm more like a thing, a cheap blow-up doll at best.
Being embraced like that, as if he were a shiny new toy that Tetsuo found, made Yoji's stomach turn. If he let the situation continue, needless to say, Yoji couldn't stand for it at all. The dam of emotion that Yoji took great pains to maintain simply exploded, all of his feelings rushing out in a gigantic tidal wave.
Damn it, stop treating me like I'm your little bitch! I'm giving him way more emotion than I should.
Yoji smashed his free hand into the wall with all his might. This stopped Tetsuo's wandering fingers mid-crawl over his stomach.
Why the hell do you keep doing this? Have you given up on having any kind of normal relationship? What the hell do you call something as fucked up as this? Why does it seem like it's perfectly okay to you to keep doing this kind of shit to me? Seriously, I'm not going to say this. I'm only going to say this once. I've had enough of this. I'm begging you now. Please, please just stop.
He finally managed to put his surge of emotion into words. However, in the rain, each one just seemed to wilt and die upon impact. As much as he tried, though, he couldn't stop. Up until now, Yoji held all his rage to the point of nearly vomiting. His throat twitched as if he were ready at any moment to break down and cry. His emotions were so intense that he no longer cared. If Tetsuo were to become enraged with him for this outburst, so be it. To hell with it all. If nothing else, he was glad to finally get all those toxic feelings out of his system. He couldn't have stood for much more of it. Yoji waited with bated his breath for any kind of response from Tetsuo. However, once again, he could feel the return of Tetsuo's lips against the back of his neck.
I fucking knew
what
it.
a jerk!
Once a rapist, always a rapist.
He looked like he was about to say something, or at the very least he seemed to squirm ever so slightly as he continued pecking at Yoji with that mouth of his.
Dot dot dot.
Yeah, I know.
Ugh.
Those whispered words rendered Yoji completely speechless. It was then that he noticed the incredibly pungent fragrance in the air. It was the same smell he had encountered before from Tetsuo, except today it seemed even more intense. However, that isn't to say that it smelled like some kind of cheap perfume. It seemed to cut deeply through him, down to the very marrow of his bones, arousing him in a very powerful sense of bliss and ecstasy. But what he said just now, what exactly was he implying? Try as he might to understand the meaning behind those words, the fragrance engulfed him entirely, causing him to lose his sense of self. His sense of self. In contrast to his muddled brain, his heart rate started to accelerate, throbbing violently in his chest. A terrible ache emanated from there, swelling up like a balloon. The energy around Tetsuo was very different from all the previous encounters Yoji had had with him. During those times, for all the invasive groping of Tetsuo's fingers, it was also automatic and mechanical, that it left Yoji cold and numb. This time felt completely different. If he had to use words to describe it, he would have to say that he seemed drunk with desire. Nibbling at the back of his neck all the while, Tetsuo returned his hand to Yoji's stomach. His hand moved downward and promptly started to unfasten Yoji's belt as well as his other articles of clothing.
Wait.
Despite his protests, Tetsuo made quick work of his underwear, seemingly unconcerned. His body was so cold from the rain that he couldn't even feel Tetsuo's hand moved across his body. Tetsuo's fingers passed over the curve of his backside, diving down to where the two mounds of flesh came together at the center. That butt. He suddenly felt the pain of something trying to force its way in. He cried, his eyes up, his wide.
No, why are you...
Oh, sorry. He knew very well what would be happening to him after this, and yet for all his struggling, Tetsuo's head was not about to stop.
Sorry, guys.
Gross.
Urgh.
It never ends.
Something warm started to come out from there. Yoji guessed that it was probably blood. Nevertheless, Tetsuo didn't pull his finger away, moving further inside.
No, don't touch me. Arr.
Before he could say anything, Tetsuo's fingers continued to go even deeper. He groaned in discomfort as his face scraped against the wall. Little goosebumps formed on his skin as he started to sweat, despite the fact that he was already getting drenched by the rain. Holding his breath, Yoji firmly kept his eyes shut. Whenever you lose one of your senses, it seems that your other senses become sharper. With his eyes closed, Yoji became even more aware of all the
This
joints
is science.
as he scraped around and eventually caught hold of something down there.
Oh
What
no.
the fuck?
It's one of the...
Eventually, something deep inside him dribbled out, hot and oozy.
Quit pulling out the blood babies. What's...
What's
Yeah.
this?
It's the blood orb, you idiot. You've unleashed the blood
Yoji
orb.
buried his head into his
Congratulations.
shoulders upon Tetsuo's murmurs, which were uncomfortably close to his ears. He absolutely did not want to open his eyes. There was something there at dead center. Tetsuo's finger kept reaching out for it. As to what kind of something this was, Yoji didn't want to even imagine. As he felt something else trying to pry him even wider inside, a small but acute pain shot through him. Tetsuo had slipped in an additional finger into the narrow cavity, scraping toward the tailbone bone.
The tailbone bone.
Enduring another world of pain, Yoji held his breath as tight as he could as those fingers pulled out of him, their exit harsh and not at all pleasant. As he began to tire, however, he unconsciously let out a long breath. He couldn't allow himself to think at all. He continued to focus on his breathing as much as possible. Suddenly, Tetsuo latched onto his waist, which was accompanied by the pressure of something trying to push its way inside him.
Oh no.
Oh. With a terrible sense of foreboding, Yoji finally turned to look at what was happening. However,
Oh no.
Thing that was happening was...
it felt like his
the
entire
whole
body
thing.
was set on fire. Tetsuo continued to force his way in, accompanied by the howling pain and distress that had erupted in Yoji. He clung fervently to the wall, his nails digging into its surface. Yoji could see stars flickering in and out behind his eyes. It hurts. He can't breathe. It felt like his organs were practically being ripped into pieces inside.
Geez, sorry if anybody
That was
has any
so-
triggers,
yeah.
you know, are involving with this. Sorry, but
Yeah.
yeah.
This is the
Yeah,
yaoi
yeah.
zone. We
This
are in the yaoi
is
zone.
the yaoi zone, and that is the rape zone, according to every yaoi. Sorry.
Yeah, basically every yaoi.
Oh, but he looks so sweet.
Yeah. Jesus. Boy, I'm
Tetsuo
so happy
started-
with this situation.
Slowly started to move back and forth inside of him at a constant rhythm. Yoji gritted his teeth, a low groan escaping him.
Maybe I should like get a hold of the translation files, and I could just make it like they're
You just make it consensual, yeah.
Yeah.
Or, like, you
Or,
can
like,
put a box
they're-
over it and then just like read something nice instead. Like make it up. He could hear the sound of his disheveled shirt sticking to his skin with every jerking movement. Da-da-da. Da-da-da. Yoji could barely feel Tetsuo's hairy breath against the back of his neck. With every thrust, he pushed deeper and deeper into Yoji, practically smashing against his internal organs. That's
Alright.
great. Gross. It was physically repulsive. Being at Tetsuo's mercy, his body and soul felt no better than if they were shredded up and ground into a fine powder by a mortar and pestle. Yoji wondered bitterly to himself why he ever had to cross paths with a guy like him. However, beyond all the shame and pain that he was feeling, he started to vaguely sense something else going on. The same sweet smell from before began to cling to his nose, rising thick in the air about him. The more that the fragrance enveloped him, the more that his pain to subside. It was like some kind of drug. Even with the frigid downpour of hitting him at his back, it was nonetheless accompanied by this blissful sweetness.
Gah. Oh, I think I might need the sensor
Uh-oh.
bar pretty soon.
Uh-oh.
Da-da-da-da.
Yoji bit his lip, trying to keep himself from crying out in pain. As his body was overflowing with nothing but misery and suffering, it was his last remnant of rebellion.
Yeah, nitrochiral is pretty heavy on the the full non-cons type stuff.
Yeah, I see.
That's the production company.
Production company. Not only that, but he also didn't want to draw out any sort of reaction from Tetsuo. Even though this was all incredibly excruciating for Yoji, he still didn't want to show his captor how much he was really getting the better of him. Da-da-da. Tetsuo changed the angle of his thrust, causing each movement to hit even deeper.
Ugh.
Yoji broke the skin of his upper lip, causing the taste of salty blood to seep into his mouth. He continued to chew it into a pulp, not wanting a sound. He prayed to God that it would be over soon, that he would eventually let him go. Such was his fervent plea to the Almighty Father, who in turn apparently gave him no heed. In addition to his hopes of running away from this degrading situation, a new and indescribable fear started to mix in with the rest of his uneasy emotions. The changes in him brought about by Tetsuo left Yoji deeply unsettled.
Oh, fuck, whoa, hey. Oh no, where's my sensor bar? Fuck. It's taking forever. Okay. I might have to read the narration, just so that
Okay,
That's not
it'll
covered
cover
up,
the... Yeah. Tetsuo's hand reached out, touching the other's half-erect member. He jumped in surprise. Tetsuo proceeded to run his hand gently up and down the length of his quivering shaft. Yoji could feel the blood rush to his groin, as much as he tried to ignore it. No!
No! Stop it! I'll switch.
This shame continued to grow in Yoji as Tetsuo's hand continued to increase his erection. It was already enough, having to endure Tetsuo's assault from behind, but this, he was unfortunately responding to his touch, whether he wanted to or not. Under all the pain and violation, a wave of pleasure gradually started to swell inside of him.
Don't touch me!
He let out a small cry, the heat steadily rising and taking hold of him.
No!
He thought, all the while as his body disobeyed him. Coming from behind him was an overwhelming mixture of pleasure and pain, leaving Yoichi feeling incredibly confused about whether he should let these feelings persist inside of him. Little by little, his entire body was taken over by the flames of intense longing and impatience. Simultaneously, Tetsuo sped up the rhythm of his thrusts with that of his hand around Yoji, who felt so swollen from it all that he didn't even feel the pain. Tetsuo's hand seemed to only gain in strength, closing in even more around Yoji. There were times where the momentum from Tetsuo smacked Yoji's cheekbones soundly against the wall. Yikes.
Yikes.
The freezing rain seemed to be drifting farther away as his thoughts got caught up in a thick white mist. All he could feel for certain was the heat of Tetsuo's pounding inside of him.
Should we switch?
Oh,
And then you can go. You can read this.
Sure.
For now.
Ugh.
No! Yoji tried to hold himself back at the last moment. However, his body ultimately went against him. He felt himself burn up with scorching heat as Tetsuo continued to move quicker and quicker along the length of his shaft and wanted desire catching up with him.
Oh, god damn it!
Which is a fine reading of that line as well.
Oh, there's some blood there, too, and some semen. Oh god.
Oh my god!
Sorry.
There's just so much happening right now.
Yep.
There's jizz
Oh my
everywhere. There's
Jizz
blood orbs,
everywhere.
probably.
He was dizzy and couldn't see a thing, blinded by the dazzling white that had spread itself across his mind's eye. He felt himself come all over Tetsuo's hand, dirtying it.
Dots.
Still trembling from the after effects of pleasure, Yoji's held his breath again as Tetsuo pulled him closer by the hips. He continued to push and grind into Yoji for quite some time. Yoji could feel the walls of muscle inside him grow even more inflamed. It was with a very dazed sense of awareness that Yoji felt Tetsuo finally come inside of him. Alright.
Alright. Gross.
Surely, by now, it's fine.
Tetsuo's huge shoulders rose and fell in tandem with his breath. When he stopped moving, the sound of steady rainfall became almost deafening.
Yoji could feel the... Oh, sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
No.
Yoji could feel the heat of Tetsuo's hand fade away as he withdrew it. He could also feel Tetsuo's seed as it spilled out of him. Tetsuo squeezes out any excess from himself, which hit the ground with an audible splash.
Don't know how.
Don't know how.
Very heavy.
Still trying to catch his breath, Yoji glanced down at his own feet. In the vacant space between his legs was red puddle full of rain. His blood and Tetsuo's semen mixed together from the frothy drip that continued to drop from his thigh and into the puddle.
Gross.
Somewhere inside him was that. A strange reddish brown mass was floating there?
Yeah, it's flesh. It's like meat.
Oh god.
Yes, this is the blood orb.
Yes.
I'm just gonna pretend that it's a hamburger.
It basically is.
Okay.
Hmm.
Yoji quickly turned his eyes and turned away. It wasn't until then that he suddenly felt the freezing cold of the pouring rain again. Tracing his finger along the liquid dripping down his thigh, Tetsuo separated from Yoji. His knees trembling and on the verge of falling over, Yoji leaned himself against the wall. Lost in a thick haze, Yoji gave up trying to think about anything at all. As the warmth of Tetsuo's body on his back started to vanish, Yoji immediately felt cold and numb. It was only then that he realized just how warm it had been, having Tetsuo's skin pressed against him. As lied face down on the ground, he was very aware of his body being turned over and something touching his head. He could feel the same warmth from before in the palm of that hand. He could feel bony fingers tussling his hair. However, this too soon disappeared with everything else. Managing to glance over, Yoji watched as Tetsuo walked away into the blurry and gray landscape.
What a dick.
Wow.
With his back still facing him, his silhouette and the sound of his footsteps quickly faded away. It wasn't long before the sound of the rain was all that was left. This is so depressing. Yoji slowly stood up from where he laid against the wall. He picked up his bag that he had dropped some distance away. It was quite heavy and soaking wet from all the rain. With the soles of his shoes visibly shaking as he tried to plant one foot in front of the other, Yoji noticed that a buzzing was coming from his bag.
Oh, that's right, his sister.
It was his phone. Taking it out of his back, he looked at its small LCD screen. Someone left a message. It was from his sister. He pressed down the button on his phone to read it.
Oh.
The baby's finally here! It's a boy!
Yay.
What a beautiful coincidence.
I see. So the baby's already arrived, huh?
For some reason, he found himself on the verge of tears. He was really happy.
Aw, jeez.
And yet, despite that, he also felt incredibly sad. Yeah, well, just a while back, he couldn't stand having Tetsuo's warm body anywhere near him. Now, however, he was really starting to miss the small comfort it afforded him in the face of the chilling rain.
Oh, hello, Metal Gaming HD.
After that, he didn't remember how he gotten all the way back home.
Okay, I think I remember what happens now.
He realized he was sitting on the floor in his pitch-black room. His wonderment and mood had settled down, but he was so listless, he wondered if all of his emotion had vanished. He didn't want to think about anything. He didn't want to see anyone. He didn't want to go anywhere. Thankfully, it was the weekend, but he had no need to leave the place.
Yeah.
He wasn't sure if it was afternoon or evening. Shallow dreams wandered in his mind. He'd sleep and then wake, and then sleep again before he knew it. Only the sound of rain hitting the windows rang out in the room. His body was sluggish and feverish. Maybe he caught a cold. Yoji sat on the sofa, arms around both knees. His eyes were stagnant like mud, staring at his cell phone, which he'd tossed on the table.
Stagnant like mud.
It reminded him he'd forgotten to reply to his sister's text. Slowly, he reached out and grabbed the cell. Even moving every so slightly gave him a jolt of pain. Opening the reply window, he worked the buttons to write a text. Sorry for the or no, go ahead, it's you.
Sorry for the late reply. Truly, congratulations. I went to see my nephew's face soon.
Writing was so useful when he wanted to communicate while concealing his emotion and true feelings. Since no one could see his face, they couldn't perceive what kind of state he was in. Pressing the reply button, he placed his phone on the table once more. Even if he didn't move a muscle, he could always feel dull pain inside his body. When the pain throbbed, he could feel an unbearable sense of humiliation gushing out, burning the wounds on his heart.
Oh.
Even if his pain healed, the same couldn't be said for his heart.
And on that note, I'm going to go to work.
He was already empty.
Alright, sorry, Helican
So, I wish I could stick around, but yes, I have to go do the serious things.
That's
now.
okay. This is pretty serious.
Mm-hmm.
This is extremely serious, honestly.
Remember, guys, rape is never okay.
Yeah.
You're here. Everything was a mess. Resting his head on the back of the sofa, he closed his eyes. Without thinking of anything, he quietly listened to his own breathing. The whirring of the aquarium, the systematic sound of rain, the pulsing of his blood. Those sounds echoed, his sense of hearing sharpened. Burying his face between his knees, he abandoned his body into the quiet darkness.
Oh yeah, here we go.
Here we go.
There's a little rustling sound happening.
Rustle, rustle. Again, he'd seemed to have fallen asleep without noticing. His thoughts were muddled and unable to get any clearer, maybe because he kept dozing off. Dazed for a moment, he felt a numbing pain in his stomach.
Oh boy.
It was different from the dull pain inside of him. It was the usual pain that occurred in his abdomen. Right. How many would this be today? His face twisted, resisting the imminent pressure and the feeling of that foreign object. His backside was filled with a feverish warmth, and then something came out. No, something creeped out. Ah! Maybe he birthed something. This is really creepy.
Yeah.
Remembering Sue's text at a time like this made him feel intensely bitter.
Jeez.
Wait, I think Chad might be able to,
Do you really want in on this?
I don't know. I'm gonna check, but alright, I'll read it now.
Why are you saying that now? Is he like...
Something. Oh, because he's done with his paper.
Oh.
Something fell with a small plop. Ugh. Gradually, this discomfort in his stomach calmed, and he let out a deep sigh. What? The scene he'd witnessed in the men's bathroom burned in his mind. I don't know what it was.
It was the meat orb plopping out.
Meat orb. Okay, the hamburger. That small clump floating in the middle of a red pool of blood. After that time, he repeated the same thing again and again when he got home. He tasted when he was in his shallow sleep, just starting to gain awareness. When he thought about it, it all started then. When he'd started hearing that dry sound like withered leaves being stepped on in his room. Okay. Can I invite Asterisk to the call? Although he certainly was disgusted by this ugly phenomenon, he'd given up. At least in the moment, he had no will to do anything about it.
Go ahead if you need to.
I'm doing it.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
I don't know if I'm allowed to, but I did.
Yeah, I said you could.
No, I mean like if Skype allows it, but I added him to the call.
Okay.
He was helpless. This body of his would keep doing this regardless of his will. Exhausted, he pondered, leaning on his back on the sofa.
I'm here.
You're not human.
Those were the words Xenia had spit at him.
Hello, Asterisk.
Can you guys hear me?
Maybe
yeah.
That was true.
Oh, okay. Cool, sorry.
It's okay.
Gazing at the fluorescent lamps in the aquarium, Yoji narrowed his eyes. Those multicolored fish swimming around free were as beautiful as always. Comparing that to his own ugliness, he felt bottomless despair opening up. Beep, beep. The lights of the oncoming cars were bright, and he narrowed his eyes. Taking both hands off the steering wheel, Kitani stubbed his shortened cigarette into the ashtray. At this time on weekdays, the roads were always empty, but since it was a weekend, it was rather busy. Oh god. The wipers shook off the rain to the other side of the windshield, and the wet asphalt showed like scales. He was on a road, and he was driving, and it was wet. Compulsively grabbing his cigarette case, Kitani's thoughts were caught up in something else. Xenia. Yesterday he'd come from the school gates soaking wet and dazed. Since he hadn't caught sight of him and it was after 5, he was just about to leave for the usual hiding spot. Kitani had hurriedly put his arm over Xenia's shoulder and helped him in the car. His body had been chilled to the bone by rain, and on top of that, since it was past 5, he was shaking with pain. Without asking or hearing an answer as to what happened, he'd shut himself in his room as soon as they'd arrived at the house. Today he hadn't seen him at all. Even calling him for meals went nowhere. Although he was worried, there was nothing he could do. If he tried to force him out of his room, he would only anger him. In times like this, he could only leave him until he came out for himself. Furthermore, he honestly wanted him to rest a little. More than just being tired, Xenia simply wouldn't relax. Even just for a moment. He wanted to take the strength out of him. With that on his mind, Kitani drove to a certain place. That's him driving. Once he'd driven about 15 minutes from the Okinaga residence, he came to a quiet alley lined with small restaurants. Parking the car in a 24-hour lot, he made his way down that alley.
Oh, now I
At a glance,
remember
it was
this
a street
part.
for eateries in decline. There were several signboard out, but most shops quietly waited for customers to come without invitation. But that didn't mean that no one came. If you went in any one of those shops, it'd be bustling, an underrated place only for those in the know. Amidst the pouring rain, Kitani walked down an alley that stretched out before him, stopping before a certain building. It was plain gray 5-story building with restaurants on each floor. Even the floor information plaque would go unnoticed unless one looked closely. It was so hard to notice. The owner of the building was Kunihito. He'd inherited it from his late uncle. Kitani was headed for a bar in the basement. Entering the building and descending the stairs, the glass front door came into view. The bar's name was printed in simple calligraphy on the door. Stepping inside, the employee manning the reception area raised his head.
Welcome, sir. Please come on in.
Yeah. Nodding to the employee who bowed his head, Xenia stepped inside the bar. The Cerulean Warbler. That was this bar's name.
Now I'm just remembering this part. It's so boring. Small
a small
bar.
Kunihito
This is the first time.
Kunihito's uncle Kunihito bought it. After that time, he came
relax.
It was relaxed and it was nostalgic, and he
just
wanted
wanted
to
to
drink.
sit back and drink. He took a cigarette. Like, he's eating a cigarette. Smoking a cigarette.
Everybody is weird. I don't understand.
Oh, yeah.
He sacrificed an altar animal.
It's clearly strange, right? Kunihito's
Very
going
strange.
totally crazy and like sacrificing small animals to some weird god. Probably has something to do with what's going on.
It's as if there had been some prearranged changes arising in the two. Maybe he was worrying too much. No! Closing his eyes, Kitani pinched his brow between his fingers, massaging the place where all his stress had accumulated. Oh, come on. This is such a long... Kunihito! The boss had really changed. He hadn't forgotten when they had first met, the summer 25 years ago from now.
Oh boy.
In the future. In the future. Alright.
Alright, we can probably speed through this a little bit.
Uh,
You really thought about maybe killing someone.
he
He's
was-
just barely
he was
graduated
out of
from middle
control.
school. He was a loose cannon. He was going nowhere. He was just a bad kid on a rough road. If only someone would take him in.
His dad was a terrible guy who
Well, why
beat
did
him
this
up
girl come home if he was an alcoholic?
because she wants to fuck.
His mother's had a hard life. Poor Katani. He's
It's
the
just
only
not Katani.
likable character in this game, in my opinion.
He's thinking about killing everybody, like his mom and his
Stole,
parents.
he's on the wrong track. He's headed for a bad end.
He wants to kill everybody, anybody, but he not ready.
He's a great fighter, just like all of the.
But he got beat up a ton, actually.
Whoa.
Yeah, but was also a great fighter. But
Why
he
did I
killed
kill
himself.
Suddenly, he felt his heart grow light. Yay, he's gonna die. Awesome. But then a car stopped and picked him up. And it was Kunihito, and he decided to. Oh, right. He was like, "You wanna die? Well, I'll kill you right now. Don't concern yourself. Leave me alone."
Why are these animes fighting?
He's gonna kill him. Unless he fights
Oh.
back, and then he'll be like, "If you don't wanna die, tell me to stop." And they'll tell him to stop, and it'll work for him. "Do you wanna die? Leave me alone. Let go. Did you want to die?" Strong fat fingers. He's gonna kill him. Yeah, he's gonna. Do you wanna die? Was this death? Could he die? How is he gonna die? Why is he gonna die? Is dying a thing he wants to do? Maybe he doesn't want to die. Oh, he doesn't want to die. Okay. I don't want to die.
I want to die.
Then he went unconscious. Woke up in the hospital and he decided to work for Kunihito. Now he owes him his life, I guess.
Blee blee blue blue blah.
Blue,
It's
blue,
like
blue, 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 blue. Alright.
Aniki. Alright.
It's a flashback to when Katani, Zenya's manservant, was first started working for his dad.
Yep.
So, okay.
Okay, his cigarette. He tilted the. Okay, he drank. What religion was Kunihito devoting himself to? He'd figured he deluded creating an original god to believe in, but he hadn't considered it deeply until now.
Original God, do
It's-
not steal.
Original of the god, do not steal. It's Satan. But that scene the other day, he felt uneasy watching Kunihito offer that small animal. In the chapel there were books and documents that were clearly ancient, placed in a large box. Okay. He'd seen Kunihito take it out many times. They were probably writings regarding things about the religion. Perhaps there was a possibility he'd been influenced by those books. He wanted to
Guy's
stop
very good at
Kunihito
figuring things out.
before he got any more eccentric. To do that, he wanted to check out the contents of that box. Kitani swirled the glass in his hand, moving the amber liquid to his lips. He felt the alcohol run from his throat to his stomach. Oh, that's cool. Staring at the undulating blue light on the walls and ceiling. That's not a good... Zenya's state concerned him, and Yoji and Tetsuo. He should have been a little more cautious towards those two. Judging by Zenya's obsession, there might still be something there. Having thought so much, he realized in the end his visit to the shop hadn't been much of a breather. Kitani set down his glass and grabbed a cigarette case, smiling bitterly at himself without thinking.
He's pretty drunk.
So drunk right now.
Oh, back to this. Again and again.
Again.
He was floating in a world where reality and dreams mixed. The boundaries were blurring, and he kept rising and falling without realizing it. He just wanted to sleep at ease now, but his senses were awakening. He felt his muddy sleepiness and sluggishness, along with discomfort this time. Those symptoms again. He knew what caused them, so he opened his eyes. In the dark room with curtains closed, a small living thing made a squirming sound. Those things kept endlessly being birthed. The sound of something crawling on the floor was multiplying.
It's horrible.
Yeah, but he was already starting to react to them like a normal occurrence. He was crazy. He wasn't human. He was able to accept those thoughts now without objection. Curling into the fetal position, Yoji cowered in the bed. He'd lost his sense of time a while ago. The sound of those things endlessly assaulted his ears. Just how many were there? Maybe they even came out when he was sleeping.
Sorry.
Thinking deeply, he propped his body up with his both arms, getting up. His mood and physical condition were in the worst shape, but since he'd been always sleeping, he felt he could move a little now. Sitting on the bed, he turned his gaze to the ceiling. He imagined that the flesh clusters were spread out more throughout the room, but in actuality there were dozens clinging to the floor on the edge of the bed. Yoji stood, walking to the center of the room. It didn't feel like he was truly stepping on the floor, but walking over soft clouds.
Oh, God.
The largest piece of the pieces of meat were the size of a fist, but there were many smaller ones. Their appearance seemed so tender, just like true viscera. They were mostly reddish black, but some of them started to get pink. The surface was wrapped in slime that trembled with a twitch at the same time as the blood vessels that stood out. Occasionally, a thick tree bark-like thing would come mixed with the mass of flesh. When he touched it with the tip of his finger, it felt like rubber, like the remains of a clump that had dried out. The dried-out ones didn't move at all. Comparing them to the living thing, they seemed to be dying. If they died, that meant they performed the functions of living. So they were living things? Since they came from his body, they were part of him. The things his body was evacuating were alive. Unless he contemplated that there was another living thing acting as a parasite in his body, he couldn't understand the story in the least. To start with, was this reality or an illusion? Oh god, there's the sounds of the game.
Bending his knees slightly, he picked up a small mass of flesh that was still twitching. Oh, it's gross. Just as it looked, the thin membrane was soft and tender, sticking to his fingers. Ew. Did illusions with sense of touch exist? While he gazed for a while, the mass of meat's pulsation weakened bit by bit, and before long it was no longer moving. Maybe it died because he'd held it, or maybe it was already close to death. He wasn't sure which, but either way, it was a good thing. Yoji stood and moved to the dining room, tossing the corpse into the triangular sieve in the corner of the sink. Alright, dude.
Gotta try it out.
Though it was dead, the slippery mass of meat reflected light. It seemed like it would start moving again at any moment. He left the dining room and went back to his own room.
He just did that to put it in the sink? Alright.
Alright. He thought maybe if these masses of meat were a product of delusions, they'd disappear if he left and returned again. But nothing had changed in the room.
Oh. Wow.
Yay!
There's a doorbell.
His heart leapt at the sudden echoing sound. Ding dong! Someone had come.
Who?
Whoo! Chest rumbling, the back of his neck grew hot. He felt like he'd suddenly been thrust into reality.
Oh no, it was a wacky situation, gotta hide all my meat babies.
His palms were soaked in damp sweat, a numbing tension running through him.
And one of them's crawling out from under the couch and he has to like shove it back with his foot.
Wait, is that real? Is
No,
that true?
No.
I was gonna
I'm
say,
just
like,
imagining
whoa.
a sitcom like
Yeah.
situation.
Oh, gotta hide my meat! Someone was standing on the other side of the door, cutting the outside off from the inside. He didn't want to answer. He didn't want to see anyone. Not opening the door would be best. But
It was just a giant piece of meat.
me too. Yeah.
Gotta
Yoji,
hide my meat.
what's going on?
Gee, I'm a big meat.
I heard you were having a party. Why didn't you invite me?
No matter what happened, he wouldn't be surprised anymore. Or so he'd thought, but the strength left his legs and he was on the verge of collapsing. His body trembled with a clatter.
Whoa, it's Tetsuo!
It's fucking Tetsuo!
Pay
On
me
other
the
side of
support
door,
for your
Tetsuo
meat babies, you
back to
fucker.
Tetsuo. You made these babies.
Raise your meat babies!
Raise your meat babies. A child needs two parents. Why did he have to answer? Even when he could have just ignored it. And he planned on doing exactly that. He put his strength into the hand holding the doorknob. He immediately tried to close the door. But just before he could close it, the tip of Tetsuo's shoe stopped him.
That's not the
Tetsuo
tip I wanted to
needed-
stop the door.
Yeah.
Get lost!
He moaned, scowling at Tetsuo.
Why did you come? Go away already!
Tetsuo looked at Yoji without saying a thing. Feeling like he was being condemned in silence, he narrowed his eyes, still holding the doorknob.
Go away! Why the hell did you come? I don't want to see your face. I hate you, so fuck off! Go already! Go!
He didn't really know what he was saying. He just wanted him to get away right now! He didn't want to see Tetsuo's face. It made him think of himself during that time.
Oh yeah, DVAC. I know what that ending is too, and it's the easiest one to get. You just have to pick blue every time. We'll get that one eventually, but at this point it's not gonna happen.
So rational. That time, although he'd expected it to be awful no matter what, he felt an ever so slight sleepiness. When he was touched, his body reacted physiologically, so even though he knew there was nothing he could do about it, he hated it. He was agonized by unbearable misery. Sorry. For a short time there was silence. When he felt the indications of something moving, he opened his eyes. Huh? He was being handed several papers through the gap of the door.
What? I just came to give you these.
Maybe Chad should read it.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
Sorry, Asterisk. Yeah.
Okay. Should I just
Whoa,
read it normally?
you sound.
Bro, your mic is fucked up.
Oh, shit. Okay. Hold on a second.
Not this again.
Not this again.
I don't think it has a Twitch listing. I think Twitch just stopped doing that thing where it makes you pick an actual game that exists in its database.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes you can do it. It's weird. Like, I've tried to put in stupid things before, but it's like, no, that's stupid. But then certain things I can get away with.
I just came
Is
to.
this better?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, try it. Read it.
Should I just read it in a normal voice, or?
You can
You
do
can do
whatever
what
you
you
want.
Oh, okay.
This guy's
Okay, I'll just read it
genius,
normally.
though. Okay.
What?
I said
What's
don't give
this?
him, like... You shouldn't give him a goofy voice because he's a fucking rapist! Anyway, go ahead.
Oh, okay. You don't think rapists can be goofy?
Chad, please just
I don't
read
mean
the
that
line.
in the sense like.
Just
no,
read
that's
the
not what I
line.
meant.
Just
Okay,
read the line.
I just came to give you these.
Nobody knows what sweet pool means. Probably his pool of blood, and maybe the sweet scent that he keeps smelling when he
Yeah.
comes into contact with Tetsuo.
When he looked closely, there were handouts. After all, it was Monday. He'd been absent without realizing. That reminded him that his phone had been ringing, but he didn't really remember.
He's just like Anastasia.
Oh,
That's
Chad.
Chad.
Kamiya asked me to.
Yoji absent-minded grabbed the handouts. The paper absorbed the wetness as it touched his fingertips. After seeing for himself that Yoji had taken them, Tetsuo quietly turned back.
Did he really need to see that?
Not giving Tetsuo a farewell, Yoji stood inside, closed the door. He had returned to the inside world once more.
Maybe he just wanted to make sure he wasn't dropping them on the floor.
A sticky darkness enveloped his body. The crawling sounds resounded in his ears. Holding the handouts, Yoji stood without moving a step from the entrance way. Suddenly, he was overcome by laughter. His chest tightened with his laughter, and he crumpled the papers in his tight grasp.
Crazy.
He and Tetsuo were crazy. Even if Kamiya had asked him to do so, why would he come just to deliver handouts? He could have just refused and said he had other obligations. Obligations. So then why? Why would he come to Yoji to give him such a thing? Did he come to see his face? His miserable, completely rotted, muddled face? Did he think he could sneer at him? No. That wasn't it. That wasn't it.
Oh, we have fun.
His back to the entranceway door, he slid down, sitting. He could feel the utterly cold floor through the fabric of his clothes. He was the crazy one. He was disgusting. He was. Tetsuo was. Everything was. Everything was disgusting. Those hideous clumps wriggled around him. Yoji could do nothing but be surrounded in this twisted room where reality and illusion came together. How long had it been since Tetsuo had gone away? Yoji was facing the back of the sofa, kneeling on it, peering into the aquarium.
Oh boy.
Uh-oh. In the white swing water, the fish swam around in the coolness. The flow of the bubbles up to the surface of the water was beautiful. In the corner of his absent-minded vision, there was a red clump. Maybe it had moved and gone unnoticed, but now it was creeping up towards the edge of the tank.
Oh, no.
Illuminated by the reflection of clear water, it truly seemed like raw meat when Yoji looked it over again. It's a hamburger. It seemed like it was going to fall into the tank. You should intervene. Sorry, I'm thinking of these things as hamburgers now. It's making me laugh. Maybe something would happen to the fish.
Oh.
Just as he thought to remove it, the hamburger lurched. A splash of water leapt along with the soft sound of water. What? The fish, confusing it for food, approached the hamburger and pecked at it. Red lines danced about the water smoke.
Are we saying
better take it
the
out right
true
away.
origin of Japan's fast food industry?
Oh, God. That's what he figured, but he couldn't move his body for some reason. Realizing it wasn't food, the fish scattered. The piece of meat, the hamburger sank to the bottom of the tank between the aquatic plants, pulling along the red smoke with it. In the end, nothing happened. This tank was the only thing that hadn't changed. It kept preserving its beauty and coldness.
Hang on, I need to make sure I write down the correct thing here. So we're about to do a choice.
Oh, okay. Just as he was contemplating that, a fish that had been swimming gracefully suddenly exhibited a strange movement. Maybe he lost his sense of direction, turning round and round in that spot. After turning again and again, the fish stopped moving. And then, with a sound like a large bubble bursting, the fish's body swayed unnaturally.
Oh no!
Oh, God. A flower was bloomed on the body of the lurching fish, a large flower of flesh.
Reason or instinct?
Question. I don't know. What do you think, Asterisk?
What if have you guys just been like randomly picking this whole time?
Yeah, we're not going for a certain ending. We're just seeing what we get. Or not randomly. I mean, it's just like, I guess, based on what we want. Instinct says DVAC.
Yeah,
Sue.
I agree. I was gonna say instinct.
Alright.
Okay.
Good.
Of course, he felt a little surprised. But aside from that, he felt relieved for some reason. Okay? It confirmed that there was nothing that lasted forever. Alright, dude. The fish, colored by petals of flesh, weakly opened its mouth, floating to the surface.
Oh.
The other fish quietly passed by it.
Well, I mean, it's not like fish can talk. Fucking
There was a
idiot.
sound from the entranceway. Maybe someone had come again. Don't come. Maybe Tetsuo. His body trembled involuntarily, breath quickening. He didn't want to see him. He best not go to the entranceway. But his legs were moving of their own accord. Maybe it wasn't Tetsuo. Maybe no one was there. Regardless, he wanted to be sure. He could rest easy if he checked. With jerky movements, Yoji walked across the frightfully cold floor. Arriving to the entranceway, he approached the peephole.
There's clearly no people, it's windows.
Dot, dot, dot. There were no traces of anybody through the warped fisheye lens. Were they hiding?
I
He waited, breathing softly, but nothing moved.
I don't think that's the front door. I think that's the door separating the entranceway from the main room.
Oh, okay.
Was there really no one there? Open the door, you dumb shit. With stiffened fingers, he slowly opened the door! The sky spread out across the hall was... What? The sky spread out across the hall was black, rain still falling. He looked from side to side to double check, but there's no one to be found. With mild relief, Yoji opened the door a little further. Since he'd always been shut up in his room, the atmosphere outside felt fresh. Just as he took a deep breath, he realized something was at his feet. Sorry, burped. A plastic container protruded from a vinyl bag. Leaning over to check, it seemed to have stew inside of it. Opening the lid, he almost spilled it. The sound he heard from before must have been the sound of the container dropping. Who put this here? He didn't have any acquaintances that would give him something like this. And his sister wouldn't be able to move so soon after childbirth. Maybe someone had the wrong place. Although it was strange that he had no idea, he couldn't just leave it. Checking again that no one was there, Yoji took the bag and the container back inside. He took a tissue back to the entranceway, opening the door to wipe the spilled stew clean. Disposing the tissue covered in stew, he gave the plastic container a quick wash and returned to his room from the kitchen. Entering the room, the pieces of meat that had been crawling around couldn't hear that painful sound. Since morning, the rate of meat emission had dropped, and his body and mind were gradually getting stable again.
Is there emissions testing for that?
Meat emission! These strange symptoms were at last coming to an end. If that was the case, he ought to go back to school soon. But before
Now
then,
that
he'd
my
go to the
meat
hospital
stopped
once again.
appearing, I should go back to school.
Now that I've stopped birthing these spiritual hamburgers,
At
I
least
should
he
probably
knows
go
he's gonna go to the hospital. Which is not something many
These last
dumb
days have
protagonists
been
would do.
too strange. It was natural that he'd think something was happening to his body. This time he'd take a piece of meat he'd evacuated to show the doctor.
See, this is a good idea.
You couldn't say there's nothing strange after seeing that. Regardless, he wanted reason for this that would provide relief. This time he didn't mind if it was a disease. He wanted a reason. Being stuck without knowing a thing was the hardest part. Surely his mind was grasping at straws. Yoji threw himself to lay on the bed, closing his eyes. God, I wish this would go a little faster. Dawn. Yoji woke up to that faintly light time of morning outside the window, and although it was a bit early, he prepared to go to school.
Alright,
He turned on the
clean the filthy room, the aquarium, going dirty, thanks to piece of meat.
The hamburger.
Still feeling sluggish, he'd stopped
He
emitting
stopped
meat.
emitting meat.
It's a nightmarish few days. First he thought time would be better, but nothing. It's fine. He's cleaning. He left in the apartment. I hadn't been outside for a while. I plan to get examined. He brought one of the dried up pieces of meat in a convenience store bag along to show the doctor.
Ew.
Well, I
Just
mean,
eat the bag. I know, but like, couldn't he do like a Ziploc bag or something? Like, just a
Just
plastic
cram them
bag.
into his pockets.
Morning at the hospital, blah blah. Yoji informed the doctor that his symptoms were aggravating even more than the last time, passing him to the bag with a piece of meat in it. The doctor peeked inside the bag, looking at Yoji with a strange face. He returned the bag as if to ask him what exactly the meaning of it was. Puzzled, Yoji looked inside the bag, frowning. There was nothing there.
no! Damn it!
It had vanished without a trace.
Damn it.
The doctor now looked about to surmise, asking if he would undergo a simple examination. He said although they couldn't study deeply, there would be results right away. Although he was astonished, he underwent examination. The results were no abnormalities. The doctor asked him if he understood with a somewhat know-it-all air.
Do you understand?
He said Yoji's bad condition all originated from his anxiety, and that perhaps he was hallucinating depending on the degree of his fatigue. In the end, the examination ended with a prescription for stabilizers and sleep aids and a warning to rest as much as he could. He settled his bill and left the hospital.
Alright,
Walking
he's
towards the station,
going
he
to
was still almost
school.
shocked.
Where did the meat
Yeah, but you
go? Where is he
Tell me
put it
about
in the
it.
wrong bag? Where did it go? Where'd the meat go? Why is the meat gone? He
The
didn't
meat
want to go
went
to
where all
school.
meat goes. The meat went to the meat dimension.
No
No
abnormalities.
abnormalities.
Maybe get something out of Tetsuo or Zenya. Even if you
Didn't
didn't
like
give up, he blah blah blah.
Here's an interesting cultural fact. Since someone was asking about like, is this supposed to like, is this some sort of symbolism for something? And Devac's like menstruation probably, and I'm like, there's a
Yeah.
type of rice in Japan called sekihan, which is like, uh, sort of like azuki bean rice, and it's like kind of purplish and red. It's not sweet though. And there's a couple different theories, like it's kind of a local food in a lot of places, even though it's pretty nationally recognized for certain occasions. Uh, and there's a couple different theories about like why it is the way it is, and one of them has to do with like a celebration of monarchy, which is an interesting one, but I have not seen that substantiated anywhere.
Hmm.
Cool.
Cool. Gross.
Yep.
Hustle and bustle.
Alright, he's in school. He's
First period had just ended.
Oh.
Yahoo!
But it felt noisier in the classroom. Maybe it was just imagination. Oh, they're talking about
It was seriously scaring. I didn't see anything. What did he do?
Okunaga from senior class was there too. Heard Shiranoma punch the guy somewhere around the shoe rack, and then Okunaga was gonna hit him back. It all seemed really threatening.
Tetsuo had hit Zenya? Kichimura, the math teacher, and Kamiya had to separate them. They were taken to the office and then sent home. Ah. Oh wait,
So that's,
Chad should
oh, sorry,
God!
I fucked up. Hitting Okunaga is jacked up. He's the son of a mobster, right? What if he gets targeted? Narration.
Tetsuo and Zenya's faces came to his mind, then disappeared. Tetsuo had hit Zenya. If it had been the other way around, he'd understand. If Zenya had hit Tetsuo. If Tetsuo was hit by Zenya. But he couldn't imagine a scene where Tetsuo would hit Zenya. Last week, when he'd been summoned by Zenya after school. No matter how stirred up he got, Tetsuo didn't lift a hand to Zenya. He just quietly stared at him. He didn't want to remember what had been done to him because it was so terrible, but Tetsuo hadn't resorted to violence. Oh, really? In a way, getting violent would have been easier for him. But at any rate, how could calm Tetsuo raise a hand to someone so easily? Maybe he'd been provoked by Zenya. If that were the case, it was possible. Feeling unable to relax, Yoji looked over to the window.
Chad.
Excited.
Oh,
Makoto.
okay.
Tiny boy.
Ah, Yoji. Morning.
Turning towards that cheery voice, Makoto was standing with a smile on his face.
Morning.
When did you get here? Just now?
Yep.
Though there had been awkwardness between them for sure until just last week, Makoto was now his usual again, maybe since time had passed. Oh, sorry, Chad.
You were probably resting, but how do you feel?
Decent.
Is that right? That's good.
Makoto was smiling with squinted eyes. In the back of his chest. Feelings of guilt throbbed within him. Makoto had been the one who warned him to look out for Zenya.
Oh yeah. Did you hear the story this morning?
This morning,
About Shiranuma?
since I heard everyone talking, I guess.
I knew Shiranuma was dangerous. I felt like that for a long time, but hitting Okinaga, a normal guy couldn't do that. Well, I just knew he'd do something bad.
Makoto threw a meaningful glance towards Tetsuo's desk. That expression way of speaking irritated Yoji somehow. Makoto was certainly genuinely surprised. The same went for Yoji. But the words of Makoto and the other students were mixed with something like ill will. Even though he was someone they hardly knew. Well, I know him really well. Even though they didn't know his thoughts or what problems he might have.
Don't you think?
I guess so.
Endeavoring not to show his feelings, he came out with curt words with churt words. Makoto looked at Yoji with a surprised face.
You don't think so?
It doesn't matter. Moo, look how sad.
Dot dot dot.
This poor boy.
Makoto shut his mouth, making a blatantly sad face.
Where?
After his answer, Yoji was seized by embarrassment. He wasn't sure why he gotten so annoyed. He felt that he wanted to announce something bad about Tetsuo himself. Like that he's a rapist. But even so, he didn't plan on approving of the opinions of those around him. Look, you don't know what this horrible guy is going through. They, nothing. That feeling took precedence over... I mean...
This is quite an internal conflict.
Yeah.
The bell announcing second period ran through the atmosphere, which had once again awkward. Not chemistry.
He's not that bad, although he's
Kamiya entered the room
terrible.
holding his materials, and the students began to return to their desks. Makoto also went back to his, silent.
You can
Oh
be
wait, Chad can do this.
Chad,
This is
yeah.
the scary nerd man. Yeah.
Hold on. Should I do the nerd voice?
If you want, I mean, it's a scary science teacher.
He's
Just do a scary science teacher.
Science teacher.
Oh, okay. No, I'll just do it. Oh, Sakiyama.
Kamiya blinked, noticing Yoji.
You're better already?
Yes.
I was worried that you might collapse at home.
I'm sorry.
In the 2 days he'd been absent, unsure of whether it was day or night, he hadn't been able to accept any calls from the school. There were a ton of call notifications from the school on his cell. In short, he'd skipped without permission.
Well, no worried. Can you come to the chemistry room at lunch? I'd like to talk to you.
Understood.
Kamiya nodded with a full smile, returning to his podium. Students around Yoji were stealing side glances at him. Standing to bow with his classmates, Yoji felt his mood darken. He couldn't stop thinking about
Why did he get sent?
Why
Why
did
did
he
he
hit
hit him?
him?
Why did he go on? Why did he concentrate?
When morning class was finished and it became time for lunch, Yoji left the classroom and headed for the chemistry room. Kamiya said he'd had something to talk about, and he had to wonder what it was. Maybe he's on excuse absences. Descending the
He's walking down and he's going. Okay, there's
Okay,
Kami.
Jack.
Welcome. I've been waiting.
Sitting on one of the experience desks, Kamiya raised both hands with a smile. In one hand, he was holding a bag of rice crackers.
This is lunch.
Kamiya rustled the bag with a shape, perhaps trying to get Yoji to look at it.
Will you have some?
No.
Sit there.
Kamiya motioned to a desk in front of him, and Yoji sat as he was instructed.
Sorry to call on you so suddenly.
No problem.
How is your condition?
So.
Is that right?
Kamiya nodded, nibbling on a single rice cracker.
As long as you're alright. You didn't contact the school while you rested, did you? Since I thought you were unwell, I was made to deal with it.
I'm sorry, I caused you much trouble.
Oh no, it's no big deal, since I'm your homeroom teacher. I don't want you to overdo it when you're not feeling well.
Still holding the bag, Kamiya gestured with both hands in front of his face. It made a loud rustling sound.
Crackers!
More importantly... Oh, sorry.
More importantly, it's inexcusable to bring this up while you're still recovering, but this morning, Shiranuma caused a spot of trouble. Did you already hear?
A little, somehow.
His body stiffened slightly at the mention of Tetsuo's name. Kamiya pushed up his glasses with his middle finger.
Yeah.
Such a nerdy action.
Yeah.
Well
Yeah.
then, Okinaga senior class, Shiranuma got into a fight with him. Well, actually, he just arbitrarily hit him.
Tetsuo arbitrarily hit him? He couldn't imagine the circumstances.
I think the circumstances, he just punched him, dude.
That's what you needed to talk about?
Yes, that was part of it.
But why me?
Sakiyama, you're the one who was closest to Shiranuma out of all the class, right? I asked him to bring you the handouts while you were resting, after all.
Tetsuo had definitely come to his apartment complex just to drop off the handouts. But that didn't mean they were close. He hadn't even talked to him until recently. Finishing up the rice cracker he'd started, Kamiya started to roll shut the opening of the bag.
Uh,
Chad,
Oh, it's me. See, Shiranuma is all alone. Or rather, it seems people keep away from him, right? He hasn't shown bad behavior, in fact. He's been quite good. I simply can't wrap my head around it.
uh,
A homeroom teacher really should not be talking about such a thing, huh?
Shrugging his shoulders slightly, Kamiya continued to speak.
Even with the fight this morning, I don't really understand why he did it. I asked, but he wouldn't respond. He only really talks to you, right?
about that.
For some reason, he hesitated to deny it completely. If asked whether he hated or liked Tetsuo, he'd say he hated him. But he couldn't clearly assert that in words.
So the real question, will you give these handouts from today to Shiranuma on your way home? As an expression of gratitude for doing the same while you rested.
Setting the sealed bag of rice crackers aside, Kamiya picked up a few handouts from beside him, holding them out to Yoji. He ought to take them, but he hesitated.
It's not a. It's just like a scientist, not a drug lord. He's got a lab coat. He's a chemistry teacher.
Basically, he'd have to go and take these to Tetsuo's house if he did. Or, sorry, Chad.
Or do you have other obligations?
No.
Although he hesitated, he set his mind and took the handouts.
I thought that said hamburgers.
It was the hamburgs. It was hard to say he didn't want to go after Tetsuo had brought some to him while he was recovering. On top of
Teabag.
that, he wondered if maybe he could get something out of him this time.
It is a pretty long time DVAC, but have you ever seen the torso of a yaoi protagonist or character? They're
Yeah, who knows
extremely
how
long.
much
Tall.
longer that torso goes on under that.
He's just all torso. There's no legs ever.
School had given him an excuse, and it was easier than waiting for an opportunity.
All right, good. Then I'm trusting you. Here's Shiranuma's address and a map.
Oh wow, gives him a map too. Nice.
Kamiya held out the bag of rice crackers along with the print of the address and map.
Want to take these too?
No.
All right.
Taking only the papers, he stood from the desk and walked for his door. The door.
Then I'll be on my way.
Oh no, it's...
Chad.
Please take care. I'm relying on you.
Waving goodbye to Kamiya, Yoji left the room with papers in hand. Going up the stairs, he
Go
slowly
to
creaked out.
Tetsuo's house. He's gotta face Tetsuo, but he's gotta get information about what's going on. Hey,
Hey, Makoto! What's up? You're making a scary face. Did a girl turn you down?
shut up.
After school had ended, Makoto sat sulking with one elbow on his desk in the classroom with a few students who'd finished cleaning duty. Oh, scary! We're going home. How about you?
I'm good. See you tomorrow.
Righto! Without taking offense to the careless reply, his friends left the classroom. Alone, he let out a harsh sigh.
By the way, if you get tired,
Oh, I was about to say, if somebody wants to switch to be narrator for a bit, I want to eat pizza, but I will read smaller bit parts.
okay.
Okay.
I guess I
That
can
should
be nice.
read.
Okay, good, because my throat gets
Yeah.
starts hurting so fast. It's crazy.
Okay, I'm muting
Okay.
myself and getting pizza.
I think I get too tense reading.
Yoji was the reason why he was in a bad mood. After the oh god, I talked too fast. After the farewell bow, he'd asked Yoji to walk home together, but Yoji had replied saying he had something else to do. He knew I'd been rejected. Yoji was most likely going to Tetsuo's house. He wasn't sure. It was intuition. No, more like an assumption. But by looking at how Tetsuo and Yoji were acting recently, he couldn't think of anything else. The start of the week, when Yoji had been absent. After the farewell, Kamiya called on Tetsuo, handing him some printouts. He knew right away that they were the homework printouts for Yoji. Yoji had been the only one absent that day. Kamiya must have asked Tetsuo to deliver them to Yoji's home. Refusing his friend's invites to go home together, Makoto shadowed Tetsuo, taking care not to be noticed. He wasn't sure where Tetsuo lived, but he'd seen him on the train many times. He knew that he lived in the same area as Yoji and himself. Boarding the train, a peculiar and humid stench reached his nose. Around this time, the train on rainy days was humid and unpleasant. The train arrived at the stop. The train arrived.
Yeah, I was gonna start
You're just
doing
gonna speed
more
through?
train
Okay.
shit. He's
Train,
falling on the train.
door.
He knew it. He's
He knew it.
getting on the train. He's there off of the train now. He's
There
falling
you
into
go.
Yoji's house. Yep,
Yoji's
there he's
house.
going. He's going to Yoji's house just like he's
I
suspected.
gotta see him. I gotta
Okay.
see this guy.
He doesn't like Tetsuo. He's
Why is-
unapproachable.
That's so weird.
Why
My
is
friend.
Yoji like him? I don't get it. Why is he like me instead? I just want to hang out with him. I just want him to eat. I just love to eat so much.
So cruel.
They kept their weakened classmate at a distance. That's such a weird way to put it.
I mean, they want him like separated from the herd in case a lion comes or something.
Oh shit, whoops. He had a strange attachment to Yoji. Perhaps he was crazy, even
He's,
so he
he's
couldn't
je-
stop.
he's jealous. Yeah.
Follow
There you
him. He moved. I suppose a rather stupid thing. What was he really doing? And Tetsuo gone to the entrance after seeing him. Misery, anger, and dejection. Why did Kamiya ask Tetsuo? Why couldn't it have been him? Rain. Tetsuo got off at Yoji Station again, even though he was sure blah blah blah. So, he's gonna use place scan to come in, blah blah. He didn't have another purpose. I think he was giving him the stew. Yoji was going to see Tetsuo. Alright, go ahead, Trill. Or, sorry, asterisk.
Brushing both hands through his hair, he ruffled it up. He considered trailing Yoji, but abandoned the idea. Felt like he didn't want to do such a thing to him. This all reminded him. It wasn't just Tetsuo who was a danger, but Zenya too. He tried to tell Yoji that chauffeur had come all the way to his apartment, but he hadn't been taken seriously. Even though he worried so much. Yoji would never talk to him.
Oh.
Even though he wanted Yoji to rely on him more. Even though he wanted to be Yoji's strength.
Oh no.
Oh, senpai
He must be
noticed
lacking
me!
something. Somewhere. Groaning in a low voice, Makoto ruffled up his hair more and more. Sulking by himself really made him look dumb. He fell onto the desk. That's not going to make you look less dumb. He lived until now without experiencing these feelings. But no matter what, he just didn't want Tetsuo to get closer to Yoji. He wanted to draw Yoji to him by any means possible. That's right. He literally wanted Yoji to belong to him. Maybe that was a very faulty expression, but it was the one that was closest to his feelings. It might have been,
Haha, I'm being gross. Am I some kind of homo?
Muttering softly, he fell beneath a wave of self-hatred. Pressing his forehead to the desk with a thunk, Makoto slowly closed his eyes. After school, Yoji was rocking on the train he'd taken to get to Tetsuo's house.
Just
Wonder what
rocking
he's
out.
listening to.
Listening to some Iron Maiden.
That being said, it was the same train as always. He'd come to learn that Tetsuo lived near the
Alright,
station.
he's on the train. The train is being a train. He wasn't twice. He's gonna see where Tetsuo lives. He's interested, and now the train is on the train.
The train.
Alright.
Tetsuo's house.
Tetsuo's house was deep in a residential area about 10 minutes from the station. Oh yes, very deep. It was a standalone Japanese-style house that excluded the dignity of age. It was only one floor, but it was lengthy.
Long house.
There was a nameplate that read Shiranuma near the intercom at the entrance. This was where Tetsuo lived. At once his mood improved, and he slowly took a deep breath.
Oh, okay.
Alright.
Then he pushed the button for the intercom.
Yes?
Yes! Sorry.
A gentle female voice came over the
Yes.
loudspeaker. I'm Sakiyama, from the same class.
His words caught in his throat, unable to come out smoothly.
Uh, Homework printouts. Mr. Kamiya asked me to... Wow, I really fucked that up. Kamiya asked me to...
Please wait a little, okay?
There was a sharp sound... Oh, sorry. That's Shrill.
No, it's
There was a
true.
sharp sound from the speaker,
Oh,
and the door of
God.
the entranceway opened immediately.
What's going on anymore?
Good evening. Oh dear, thank you. I'm Tessa's mother.
The person who came into view was a middle-aged woman, draped in a meek
I see.
ambiance, just like her voice.
I have to go for that meek ambiance.
She seemed to have a relieved smile as he looked at her. But she seemed a little old for a mother. Well, rude. He would have believed it if she said she was his grandmother.
Sorry you had to make a special trip. Thank you.
No, here you go.
He fetched the handouts he'd been holding on to in from his backpack, and the woman's smile grew.
Since you took such great pains, please come on in. I just finished preparations for supper.
It's gonna be awkward. Oh, but...
Sending you home like this after you came so far just wouldn't be excusable. I implore you to come inside.
Hmm...
He hadn't planned on going inside, but he couldn't be discourteous.
In that case, pardon me for interruption.
No need for reservation. Well, come on in.
Oops, sorry. He's in the
he
house
goes
now.
in the house. He goes in the house and there's the smell.
No need for
If you
reservation.
go
That's restaurant
straight
humor.
down this hall, Tetsuo's room is at the end, so by all means, supper will be ready soon. Please wait.
The woman gave a small bow with a smile on her face, disappearing into the living room. He was still perplexed, but he couldn't turn back after going so far. Yoji walked down the hallway. To his left, he could look out at blah blah.
He walked to the
blah,
house
blah,
in the
the
past.
door.
He has
It's Tetsuo's
tattoos.
door.
Oh no, Tetsuo's room. Maybe you should leave. But what are you gonna do? I don't know why he's knocking.
What not to knock?
Tetsuo, peeking from the open door, stopped moving once he saw Yoji. Yoji's gaze immediately fell to his feet. He wanted to hide somewhere. His nerves were so strained he felt like he was going to collapse.
What is it?
What is it?
Oh right.
With a sigh, Tetsuo muttered. Starting to be unable to bear it, Yoji kept his eyes down and grabbed the handouts from his backpack.
This is from Kamiya.
Tetsuo's gaze shifted to the handouts. Yoji held them out like he was pushing them forward, and those large hands accepted.
Those large yaoi hands. Well then.
Oh wait, no, I think I was saying.
Wait.
Well
Oh.
then.
Wait.
Just as he tried to leave, Tetsuo called him to a halt, and his shoulders jumped.
You can come in. You were probably told we were gonna eat some.
He must have figured out the details as to why Yoji had come this far. Tetsuo returned back inside his room. Obeying Tetsuo's words was annoying in a way, but he couldn't stand there being obstinate. Reluctantly, Yoji decided to go inside the room. Although it was Japanese style, the interior of the room was exceedingly ordinary. His bed, desk, and shelves were all black, and there wasn't anything especially different. It was a bit surprising, since Tetsuo didn't give any hints of living a normal life. Although, maybe if it were someone else, he wouldn't see it that way. Tetsuo, sitting in a chair, set the handouts on his desk and jerked his chin towards the bed.
Sit.
Just as he was told, Yoji sat on the bed, draped in black covers. His body felt stiff, jerky, and completely robotic. He was so nervous he hesitated to move a finger. Although Tetsuo had taken off his tie, he was still in uniform. He must have been that way since he got home in the morning. Yoji's gaze fell into his lap. The silence almost stuck to his skin, in his skin. Fuck. Maybe he should talk about something. No, more importantly, he'd come today with a goal, which he'd already accomplished.
No, he's got to figure
Yeah.
out what's going on. What was his
What
goal?
was his goal? He was too tense, and his mind blanked.
Oh, jeez, come on.
He was desperately trying to regroup his thoughts, which had vanished in an instant. Firstly, to give him the handouts. Then, yes, to find out what Tetsuo knew about him. That reminded him. His incident this morning had been on his mind. The story of him hitting Xenia. He wondered what his reason was. After that, he also wanted to ask Tetsuo about that rainy day. Suddenly, the scene came to his mind. His hands grew shaky, gripping at his knees.
Oh no!
Why did he do something like that to him? He wanted to ask, but he couldn't. He'd only been intending to put his thoughts together, but all those incidents came up. It was no good. He should go home. Or so he thought, but his eyes met Tetsuo's when he lifted his head.
Uh,
He averted his eyes, wanting to run away. He couldn't read a thing from those eyes, indifferent as ever. How did Tetsuo feel right now? Passing time in silence, without knowing a thing, was difficult. He didn't think it would be so painful to be unable to read his thoughts. He ought
gotta
to
go
go home.
home. Oh, knock at the door. Okay. Troll.
Charles.
Uh-oh.
It's the old woman, Charles.
She
Uh-oh.
gone.
Uh-oh.
Supper.
I can do a part. It was the voice of the woman from just before, Tetsuo's mother. If she has more lines, that is. Tetsuo stood and headed to the door. He surely couldn't just brush Tetsuo aside and leave. He missed his chance. But thanks to her, the tense atmosphere relaxed, and he settled down just a bit. He'd be okay for a little longer, letting out a small exhalation. Yoji followed behind Tetsuo and left the room.
If you'd like, please take a second helping.
When he entered the living room, steaming side dishes and miso soup were lined up on the dining table. Yoji's heart secretly grew warm because of the affable-looking homemade cooking. Yoji could cook for himself, but he couldn't make anything elaborate. He hadn't seen food like this since he lived with his sister.
Alright, his ex-family, plainly different, is Salnad. Tetsuo sitting. Okay. Today I happen to get a holiday. Tetsuo's father and I both work, so supper is usually late. Sitting, talking happily at 2 pairs of chopsticks, definitely for Tetsuo and Yuji. His father will probably come home later. Well, go ahead, eat up.
Wow, look at the jacked up way his mom is holding those chopsticks.
I'll check it out next time I see. Oh, he's finally gonna eat. Hooray. Okay, go ahead.
He's gonna pass out, and then there's not gonna be any eating. Oh, should I read?
Oh, yeah, thank you for the meal. Go ahead. Oh yeah, what is she doing?
Grabbing his bowl. She's just claw gripping them.
Maybe
Um,
she's not eating yet. Maybe she's just picking them up. I don't know.
but they're like positioned as if she were holding them correctly. So
Is Trill saying something? Is she whispering
I
something?
said, yeah, I was. I said sorry about that. My internet fucked up.
Oh, that's okay.
grabbing it.
Dinner with
Stock.
mom. So what happened? Did
Slide
they ask
tongue.
what was happening?
Nope, he didn't manage to say a thing.
Oh,
He just
loser.
thought about the things he wanted to say but did not say them. It's delicious.
Tetsuo's mother smiled happily.
Tea? Oh, go ahead.
Tee, wonderful.
He doesn't look
Not
that
that
old. Yeah.
Yoji's just a dick.
Yeah.
His shoulders relaxed as he began to eat. Looking over the side dishes as he tried to decide which one to take, his gaze stopped at the stew.
The stew.
Suddenly, it brought back a memory. The stew in the plastic container. It's yes, we remember.
Alright. It looks like that stew. This was the
across his
stew.
mind. Stew generally are similar, so there was a possibility he was wrong, but Yoji's eyes, they look the same.
Please eat plenty of stew if you like. My boy likes it as well. He eats it often.
Yes, I'll be having some.
Because I'm always tied to my work. Haven't met any of my boy's friends, so I was surprised today. It's great that it was on my day off.
God.
felt slightly guilty. He wasn't his friend, but he couldn't just say that.
That reminds me! Today I thought he was going to school. But I was surprised when he came home right away. I heard he got into a dispute with an upperclassman from the homeroom teacher. So I told him, it's no good to be a bother to others.
Tetsuo continued with his chopsticks without saying a thing. At Kamiya's discretion, she probably didn't hear that he'd hit an upperclassman.
Oh,
Pardon me, could you tell me your name once more?
Sakiyama.
Sakiyama. If you could, would you please continue to be good friends with Tetsuo?
Oh boy.
Hey.
Yes.
He couldn't say no when he was being asked with a smile. His kind mother. The warm food, the warm house. Even though Tetsuo was silent as always, he felt the atmosphere was seemingly more gentle. At school, he always put up a wall, but now it was weakening. But for some reason, he felt a strange sense of loneliness from Tetsuo. Even though he was satisfied, something was off. Something didn't really fit. Maybe it was because Tetsuo wasn't talking, but being quiet in front of family isn't unnatural.
Blah blah blah, don't speak to your family, we all know how that goes.
Orders of his mind.
Alright, now he's back home. Treats me all for 9 o'clock.
Unexpectedly, he was suddenly in his room. Tetsup.
He mostly heard about school.
Tetsup's mother.
Yeah. Tetsu didn't see me. I couldn't tell him I was that too. The way lioness from here. Feed his fish.
They could have at least, like, made his fish all dead, since that's what happened.
Well, no, only one of them died.
No, he said that, like, in the morning he emptied out, like, his tank because a bunch of them were dead.
Oh.
Like, the water was dirty and they were dead.
Well, he said he was feeding them, though.
There must be some left.
Maybe
it's because of mental fatigue.
He Shucks, left the room for the kitchen. Black shriveled thing. Oh no, the thing in the sink, the piece
It's
of
the
meat.
dead baby.
But there's must have still been one. He looked away from the sink, but the sink there's a stew. The stew from the stew house. That's the stew.
A stew house? What is this meat lump doing in my
What
house?
is this meat lump? It's making me think of stew.
He'd seen the Tetsuo. Maybe it was
More human than Yoji.
warmth of family.
He'd already begun to forget the warmth of family.
What if he made stew out of the meat monsters? Okay.
That's nasty.
Yeah. Sorry.
I mean, how else are you gonna feed yourself? You don't leave your room.
Alright. School time again. I think we're getting up to the part where I haven't played past.
Back to the school.
Fascinating.
Sorry, just saying.
Yoji
No,
had
it
his-
is. It is. I'm excited.
Perhaps because he'd eaten a proper meal.
He felt good for the first time in his goddamn life.
Because he fucking ate food finally.
Tetsuo still hadn't come yet. Makoto is still
He
talking to
looked
his
into
friends in the
several
background.
doctors. They'd never been able to diagnose his condition. What could it be?
Oh no.
Makoto was sad because he loved Yoji, but Yoji would not pay attention.
Now he's playing hard to get.
Oh, voice of saying,
So, seems like Shironuma got a stern warning for the whole fight thing yesterday.
Is that right?
Is that right?
So
Go
is he
ahead.
gonna show up today?
Probably. Well, it seems like they let it slide since there's been no problems with him before and his grades are good. He's smart even if he got into a fight or two this year. I don't really get it, but it'd affect the rate of students to go to university if they kicked him out.
This
Sorry.
person, this unnamed character has more lines than
I don't know,
Yoji.
than everybody. My god.
Ah, I see. Well, even so, with the way Shironuma looks.
The sound of the door opening could be heard, and the classroom became completely silent.
It's Tetsuo!
The one who opened the door was Kaneda, giving the room a glance. came in with relaxed movements. Tetsuo took his seat, and the class seemed to unfreeze, returning to its liveliness. Yoji let out a quiet breath and leaned into the chair. The students who had just been talking about Tetsuo changed to another subject. Nonchalantly peeking over at Tetsuo, the walls that had weakened when he had visited him were back up. Just as always, Tetsuo was there, like a puppet, because he knew there was another side of him, which put him in a strange mood. He knew less and less about Tetsuo. Which was the true Tetsuo? Thinking it over, Yoji stood at the signal for morning exercises of the speakers.
Lunchtime. Crossing through the courtyard. He's going up to the roof.
Secret premonition.
Blah,
That's
blah.
right.
There's
It
Tetsuo.
was
He's
Tetsuo.
on the
Oh.
roof. What's he doing on the roof? Maybe they would become roof friends.
Tetsuo was eating bread.
He discovered something. Why he felt so intimidated by Tetsuo.
Well, why do when Tetsuo looks at someone, he
Gee.
can start. Of course, that's why. Like, it's not any of those other things that happened.
If only I could just read his thoughts, I wouldn't feel so intimidated.
Here.
Here.
Oh. He held out the cane to okay.
Oh, that's Chad. You gonna read?
Oh, he held out the container in his hand for Tetsuo.
This is yours, huh?
He should have asked, but his confidence had suddenly vanished. If he was wrong, he'd turn away immediately and leave.
Buh.
Tetsuo stared silently for a while, opening his mouth.
That's right.
That's right.
Buh!
Should have said- That meant, in short, Tetsuo had been the one who put the stew in front of his door. That was actually much more than you needed to say to keep it short. He understood Tetsuo even less now.
Short.
Why'd
That was
you,
actually in long.
why'd you bring this to my place?
Yeah, that's right. Tetsuo said nothing, starting to eat his bread once more. What kind of bread does he eat? He tried waiting a little.
Yakisoba or whatever?
That's not bread, that's noodle.
What's
No.
Or no, it's noodle bread. I'm so dumb. Go ahead.
Yakisoba pan, yeah. There was no sign he was going to. They made it on Yakitate Japan, Charles. He was going to answer. Standing still without a reaction was tough. A light breeze blew, and there was a faint chlorine smell. It must have come from the pool beside the old school building. He couldn't stand forever. Giving up, Yoji sat down in that
It is
spot.
yakisoba bread.
a
could just
hot dog?
leave. No, it's definitely yakisoba bread. Maybe it was because he'd gone to his house and even been treated for supper, but being beside Tetsuo was a little less painful. He looked over to Tetsuo's profile. School and home.
Which
Which
is
was
the
the
true
true
Tetsuo?
Tetsuo?
Okay, guys, we remember about the true Tetsuo, and he doesn't know.
He was confused by all these versions of Tetsuo.
Well, where was I? Well, there's a few things.
He muttered, his gaze falling to the concrete beneath him. There was no answer from Tetsuo. Perhaps that triggered him, but suddenly words were coming freely from his mouth.
I don't really get you. I've watched you so many times. It's making me crazy. But why? Maybe I've got a weird illness, but that's creepy even so, huh?
He traced over countless cracks in the sidewalk with his eyes as he spoke.
And I thought maybe you were gay, but even if that's so, who would be interested in anyone this creepy? With someone who isn't human? I'm scared of you. I don't know what you'll do to me, since I don't know what you're thinking, so...
Unsure of how best to continue, he closed his mouth. He choked midway. He couldn't find the right words. Tetsuo must feel pretty down, too. He'd already shown some disgraceful behavior. He just opened up the wounds further if he kept going in this flustered state. In that case, he ought to man up and withdraw before he did anything extreme. Anything extreme. It was just then that he tried to stand. Suddenly, something was thrust into his field of vision. It was bread in a plastic bag. Omelette yakisoba pan, a popular pan known to sell out in Jupun. The one holding it out was, of course, Tetsuo.
Shut
There was no
up.
one else around.
Who could be holding the bread out? Is it Tetsuo? Was Tetsuo
Tetsuo's
holding
dick.
the bread?
Yeah, that's because it was thrust into his vision. And
Sure,
his
Tetsuo
dick.
hadn't brought this.
It's
Like,
actually not
It's
not
not-
bread.
it's not his penis.
couldn't
his
imagine
penis is
it.
holding the bread.
But
there it was in front of
was
him.
The bread is in the bread.
Should he take or refuse such a valuable bread?
No, he felt that wasn't the problem.
Such a valuable.
Confused, Yoji shoved the container at Tetsuo, standing without taking it in the end. He turned his back to Tetsuo and headed for the door. For some reason, he was hugely embarrassed, and he felt a little irritated. He wasn't
want
sure
a
if he was irritated
sandwich.
with himself or
I want
Tetsuo.
answers!
In any case, he was going crazy when he was with Tetsuo. Yoji started to run down the stairs, stirred with indescribable emotion.
But student school is the 5th period. Oh, it's just Tetsuo again.
Oh, it's Tetsuo again.
Was he mad? What's he put
He
on
put
his
something
desk?
on the desk. He remember it as his wallet.
Okay. My.
You dropped on the stairs. And
At those words, he noticed he had dropped something midway. He always kept his wallet in his back pocket, so it must have fallen as he bounded down the stairs. He picked it up and brought it to him.
To him.
Him.
Thank you. That was all he should say. Oh, he didn't say it.
But
For some reason,
he could.
couldn't. He was obstinate, but more than anything, mortified. It was utterly humiliating that Tetsuo was so calm when he'd chosen such a childish action. Hanging his head silently, Yoji felt something cold touch the back of his neck.
That's the
Yep,
It's
surprise.
the blood.
Tetsuo
jelly,
was-
blood, whatever.
His body stiffened when he remembered being touched by him before. He jerked to get away from Tetsuo's hand, scowling slightly at him.
What is it?
It's coming out again.
What is?
Thin red liquid stuck to his hand when he put it to his nape to find out. How long had it been coming out? Did the other students not notice? Obviously, Tetsuo had seen it. He again remembered that it wasn't an illusion only he could see. But what was Tetsuo thinking, touching something gross like that? Like the blood of others? Tetsuo closed the finger that had touched Yoji's nape into his hand. He was captivated by that action. His body temperature rose, abdomen aching dully.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
A sigh seemed to almost overflow from his lips.
Oh, Makoto. Ah.
Oh jeez, it's Makoto.
Look
Yeah, I
at
guess-
him.
Sharp
Chat.
voice tore through his trance. Makoto was approaching, standing in Tetsuo's way as if he were protecting Yoji. Should I read this?
Yeah.
No. Oh.
Oh, fine, I'll do it.
No, okay.
Yoji doesn't like you. Go away.
Makoto glared at Tetsuo with an extremely grim face.
You're being a nuisance. There's no reason to suddenly follow him around. You do know he hates you, right?
Hey.
Go away and never come near Yoji again.
Yoji was bewildered by the sudden state of affairs. The students around them were also watching, uneasy.
Oh, logic or reason? I mean, God, I always say logic or reason.
Yeah,
Reason or
raw
instinct?
Logic, reason, or instinct. That's really hard. I say instinct.
What's...
Yeah, I also say instinct.
Alright.
Fire, fire, fire. Hot.
Instinct.
Oh, whoops. There we go. Enough. Stop, Makoto.
Why?
With a stifled voice, Makoto turned to look at Yoji. There was a strange light in those eyes.
Yoji! Why are you sticking up for him? Is he that important?
What are you saying? Relax.
Shut up! Why are you like this with him? But with me! With me, you!
Aw.
The minute he
Oh,
spoke,
this is horrible.
Makoto sprung at Tetsuo, grabbed him by the collar, vigorously pulling it upwards. A shriek came from a female student, and a commotion started to brew in the classroom.
Makoto, stop!
Yoji stood from his seat as Tetsuo grabbed Makoto's shoulders, trying to get away. Tetsuo was silently staring at Makoto, his expression not changing a modicum.
Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! Shut up!
Let's
Chad,
see.
read it.
Nope, can't read that. Too much kanji. Sorry. You guys need to quiet down. What? Oh, whoops.
That's
No, it's
Kamiya,
fine.
I think.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Mita, stop it.
Shut up!
Oh,
Let
that's
me go!
confusing.
Let me go!
After that, Makoto was dragged out of the classroom by Kamiya. Class started a little later, but he wasn't in a state to concentrate much. Why on earth did Makoto do that? Thinking deeply, class ended before he knew it.
Yoshi
After
left
school.
classroom, Yoshi was last. Yoshi sighed, the evening sun, he had a conversation with other students. I mean, it was just yesterday he hit an upperclassman, and today it was Makoto? Shironuma is really dangerous, huh?
Yeah, but wasn't Mita being weird today too? That's the first time I've seen Mita like that.
He was definitely...
The students' voices paused, an unnatural silence coming through.
Yeah.
Feeling a gaze on him, Yoji turned around to see the students who had been talking looking at him. He shuddered at all the eyes on him.
Hey, Sakiyama, are you friends with Shironuma?
One of the students started to talk to him, seeming very interested. The other students also leaned forward, joining in.
Today at lunch, you're talking about something, right? And a while ago, he went with you to the infirmary?
It's pretty unexpected for you to be friends with Shironuma.
Do you know why he hit that senior student yesterday?
He was
He was bombarded with rapid-fire questions. An obvious sense of curiosity spilled from their tones of voice. Looking down on Yoji, who was separated from the class with a childlike simple-mindedness, teasing him cruelly and expecting an answer. He got fed up when those faces drew near.
He killed them all.
Yoji silently looked around, and there was confusion on their faces. Maybe even irritation. An uncomfortable moment passed. He had no intention on replying to their questions, and was wondering if maybe he should go somewhere else.
Oh.
The door opened, and Tetsuo entered the room. The students who'd crowded around Yoji quickly backed off.
You next. To the chemistry room.
He stood at those words, grabbing his backpack and leaving the classroom. Makoto had probably gone home. Remembering the way Makoto looked when he was quarreling with Tetsuo, he headed for the chemistry room. In the chemistry room was Kamiya, seated and waiting at one of the desks.
True.
Sakiyama, I'm sorry I had to call you here as well. I feel like we've been talking a lot lately, but for now, sit down.
Walking to the desk in front of Kamiya as indicated, he sat down.
I talked with Shironuma and Mita, and I mostly understand. You were just dragged into it. You didn't do anything.
Yes.
That's what
That's what-
Shironuma and Mita said as well.
What kind of talk did you have with...
Outside?
Oh, wait. I don't know who.
No, it's you. As usual, Shironuma wouldn't say much, but Mita sulkily apologized. He said he was in the wrong. Well, scuffles are a way to learn when you're young. Although, I think you can learn from hitting each other. What I just said is a secret, because the other teachers in PTA would scold me.
Kamiya smiled with an impish grin, bringing his index finger to the corner of his mouth.
Like that? Well then, I just wanted to confirm that with you, so you can go home, I suppose. Oh yes, there was the one other small thing.
Kamiya pushed up his glasses as if he were considering something, then readjusted his position on the seat.
About a pathetic creature. Sakiyama, do you know what a myrmecolion is?
Ooh, that was mentioned before, I think by
Myrmecolion?
Kunihito? Kunihito?
Kunihito?
The old boss guy.
Gang boss.
Yeah. No.
Myrmicolian. It was a strange... Oh, no. Chad.
It was a strange word he'd never heard before.
There you go. This is troll.
Oh. It was a monster that was half lion, half ant. One theory suggested it was caused by lion sperm accidentally spilling onto ant eggs.
Oh, an antlion.
Well, even its appearance was sad, being a lion and ant. There was one thing above all that was problematic with this combination. Do you know what it was?
It was an antlion.
He had no clue. Yoji shook his head from side to side, and Kamiya made a bored-looking face.
You gave up fast. The answer is their meals. Lions are carnivorous, yes, but the ant section still thought itself herbivorous. The lion wanted meat, but the ant couldn't have that. The ant wanted grass, but the lion couldn't have that. In short, they ate nothing. Myrmicolians died of starvation shortly after they were born. No one knows what their purpose was.
Oh no, it's you. Yoji.
It was certainly tragic, but it was so far-fetched he couldn't follow very well. Was there really such a creature?
Oh, sorry, that was me. Was there really such a creature?
Oh.
It was mythological.
The sudden turnaround was anticlimactic. Kamiya crossed his arms with a childlike expression.
What could it have been? When there was an error in the translation of the Bible from Hebrew to Greek, that story came to be. The secret story of the birth of the poor antlion.
Huh.
He had accidentally given a careless response. He wondered what the meaning of this conversation was.
But I was thinking, oh look at that face. If either the lion or ant killed the other part, perhaps they could have survived. If they couldn't coexist, then one had to usurp the other. Myrmicolians are fantasy, but it wasn't too long that competing societies did so.
What?
I don't know.
Kamiya narrowed his eyes with a smile as he spoke. It was a little surprising how cold that expression felt. With a sharp snake-like glint in his eyes and his smiling lips. It was an expression completely unlike him.
Anyhow, that's a rather stiff topic, isn't it? Well, teaching can stress you out a bit.
In a complete change, Kamiya was smiling happily. There was no trace of that previous coldness in his expression.
So you delivered the handouts to Shionumi today. Thank you.
No problem.
What else did I want to talk about? Oh, right! I remember!
Smacking his palm, Kamiya slowly raised the corners of his lips.
You see, Sakiya, but I make an effort to love all my students equally. I don't know what that means.
What was he going on about all of a sudden? Confused, he waited for the continuation.
So I also want to be sure you receive my love. What I'm asking is, will you please come to every lesson?
Hit where it hurt. Yoji was dumbfounded. It was true that he was behind in classes because of his health and so on. Perhaps confirming his beliefs when he saw Yoji's expression, Kamiya shook his head.
There's nothing you can do. You had to heal. But at this rate, your test scores will be affected. There is much I would like to teach you, but I cannot. So...
Interrupting himself there, Kamiya pushed his glasses with his middle finger. The silver frames reflected the fluorescent lights.
Oh no!
Oh no. I've asked a favor of Shiranuma. He's number 1 in the class. And he's always in the top 3 of his grade in science and math.
Top 3?
Come to think of it, he'd...
that's
Chad's
Chad.
turn.
Come to think of
Sorry.
it, he'd heard something like that. That his results competed for first or second in his grade. But even so, what did he ask to Tetsuo?
It could be. Sorry, that's you.
He couldn't be.
To help you catch up, he'll instruct you steadily. It will be a good chance to deepen your friendship with him as well.
Oh no!
Yoji was dumbfounded as he was told this, in a smile so full it made him hateful.
What you're saying is...
Um,
Oh.
That Shiranuma will be tutoring you. Or is that
not okay.
Uh,
It wasn't
It
okay.
wasn't okay.
It might have been for the best, but Yoji wished Kamiya had confirmed it with him beforehand.
I'm not really used to things like that, so...
No, well, in truth, Shiranuma recently fought with Senior, right? So I told him his punishment for his recent behavior is to tear you, Sakiyama. Since it looks like I'm using you for punishment, I'm sorry, but you should think of that as just another way of explaining it to him. Please try to give it your best with Shiranuma for me, okay?
Understood.
He nodded reluctantly. In actuality, it wasn't so terrible that he could protest. He knew what he didn't like, but when it came to Tetsuo, he wasn't so sure.
But...
If you need something, please, come talk to me whenever.
Yes, I'll be leaving.
He stood from the desk he was seated at and left the chemistry room with a slight bow.
Can I ask you what the word is for "I'll be leaving"? Because I see it all the time translated exactly that way. I'm assuming it's a common phrase.
It depends on the context, but in the context of like school, if you're leaving a room with like teachers, you'd say "shitsureshimasu."
Okay,
Yeah, like excuse me from the room, yeah.
I see.
Yeah. He felt uneasiness spreading in his chest as he walked. Tetsuo was going to tutor him. He couldn't imagine that at all.
Oh, wrong button.
Oops.
Yeah, shitsureshimasu is a little weird because like it's one of those phrases that basically has the meaning of like please excuse me or like I'll be leaving now, but it literally translates to something much like please excuse me like for this terrible interruption or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Changing his shoes at the rack, he noticed it was raining as he was about to leave.
Oh, that means maybe Zenya's gonna show up. Because he
Uh-oh.
usually shows up when it's raining.
Mm,
Because he had exposed rain. I brought an umbrella. He hated rain. Maybe because he was raped in the
Just-
rain.
Steal someone else's
No.
umbrella.
Yeah.
Uh-oh, screen share is stopping.
Uh-oh.
It's still working for me.
Alright, let me, like, get in and out of the call and see if that helps.
Okay. Oh, okay, it's Tetsuo again. Man, they're really ramping up the Tetsuo time. Maybe we're,
Here he
like,
is.
squarely
Turning
on
around, he was shocked!
Chad.
Tetsuo was standing, holding a vinyl umbrella.
Boo.
Yoji immediately turned back again, starting to walk in the rain.
Yes.
Somehow, his body moved before he could think, trying to distance himself from Tetsuo. But the vinyl umbrella wouldn't leave his sight. Tetsuo was following. Even speeding up was useless. The umbrella followed without passing him or falling behind. Could it be? Was he shielding him with the umbrella?
Jeez.
Just now realizing it, he grew embarrassed. Since he'd only been thinking about...
Sorry.
That's okay. Finally,
They're walking
They're
to the
walking
station.
together, no bras.
Nothing's happening. Oh, what a nice picture.
he was really losing it. He had to be walking shoulder to shoulder with Tetsuo.
Good that you were
Oh,
prepared.
He muttered without looking to Tetsuo. Really, he ought to show an ounce of gratitude, but he couldn't.
My mother gave it to me.
Is that
My
right?
precious family heirloom umbrella. Cheap piece of shit plastic.
Street smell, rain smell. And that smell I experience often. He relaxed. Blah blah blah. Oh yeah. He didn't find it uncomfortable thinking about being raped. Board the train. The same train.
After this? Oh. Yeah, okay. Isn't the station to get on the next one?
Yep. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
We're
No, I know,
we
we
switched.
were first station.
Oops, sorry. Why'd you get off here?
Because you don't have an umbrella. Eh.
Is that why he'd gotten off?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
It would make sense if he was a girl, but he wasn't. He didn't mind getting a little wet. He was drained, dazed, and confused. It would be awkward to refuse him now, so he went through the ticket gate with Tetsuo. You're only supposed to go one at a time. In front of the station, there were many people with umbrellas hurriedly moving. Well, it's fucking raining. This guy...
Uh-huh.
Yeah, okay. There was something strange, but then I looked over his shoulder.